Yeah. So can we start?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Praveen, have you started the recording?
Yes, the recording is started, sir.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, good evening, my dear friends, everyone. I, Nachiketa Mittal, founder of Judicial Preparation and Advisory Center, I welcome you all today for a special event and interface with Honorable Mr. Justice Kurian Joseph, former judge of the Supreme Court of India. Sir, we welcome you at Judicial Preparation and Advisory Center, and it's my privilege to welcome you today to interact with. There are several judicial service aspirants, law students who have been looking forward to guidance. And when I was preparing for the event, I tried to reach out to a lot of our student friends, and for them, as I could see over the years, these kinds of opportunities have always been rare, especially before the COVID times, to have a face-to-face, one-on-one interaction with a judge of a Supreme Court, and including the former judges of the Supreme Court, and including some of the judicial magistrates, and a lot of people who have been in the entire system of judicial services and the higher judiciary and the Supreme Court, with whom they can speak frankly, they can share their concerns, they can seek guidance, they can seek motivation, they can seek inspiration. I personally believe that certainly the COVID times have also brought to us certain kinds of opportunities which we can probably use in the best possible way to enlarge upon different kinds of benefits for all of us individually, for the community, for also the student community. So, in that, friends, I would request to switch off your mic. Praveen, if you could do that.
I'm following on that, sir. No issues.
Okay. So my idea has been that we can here try to draw a lot of benefit and mileage from this kind of a situation, because yeah, you will agree that before COVID times it was not feasible. It was actually not feasible for even the former judges, you having yourself a busy schedule, to visit any law school, to visit different kinds of institutions and interact with the students. You may like to do that, you may love to do that, but physically, by virtue of our constraints, the traveling and so on and so forth, it was not that easy. So I personally believe that it's like blessing in disguise, that despite the critical times that we're facing today, this appears to be a opportunity where we can use it. Now, as you have been a well-wisher, and I have been personally very grateful to you, one, for having worked with you in the Supreme Court as the Assistant Registrar years ago, and after that, since we started a journey as a virtual law school that established in April earlier this year, and since then it's been privileged to have your blessings with us, and where we started originally teaching 600 law students completely pro bono, and we could now continue our journey. I'm happy to tell you that even after that, it's 16th week as we speak today on Tuesday, that the journey, even after the pro bono, the next round of the low bono classes started. And then, owing to a lot of student demands, and there were a lot of students from virtual law school, there were a lot of students from different law schools in the country who reposed faith in me and my colleagues together. And then we have come up now with Judicial Preparation and Advisory Center, which got inaugurated on 20th of September earlier this year, last month. And it was inaugurated by Mr. P.K. Malhotra, the former Law Secretary, Mr. Sumanjyoti Khetan, the founder and managing partner of Sumanjyoti Khetan and Advocates, and Mr. Amit Vashish, the Regional PF Commissioner. And I'm happy to inform you, sir, that we have been operating our classes of the Judicial Preparation Advisory Center. We have got some of the students who have registered with us, who have reposed their confidence in us, and we have also been providing some of the very interesting ways of teaching. One of them is that we are holding in the classes in Microsoft Teams on the licensed versions. So every student who joins is given a licensed version, and every day after the lecture, we execute the test, which are called mock test, which are based on the pattern the student will face in the different state judicial examinations. And after every lecture, the recording is immediately available to the student in his or her account, so that if the student is going to miss out by virtue of ill health or traveling or any kind of unforeseen circumstances, for the purpose of not being able to attend the live lecture, the student can go back to the recording later in the night and connect with the same kind of a discussion in the next class onwards. And after that, it's a 6 months course, and beyond that, we will be allowing additional 3 months of the recording accessed by the students, so that their entire preparation is very comprehensive in nature. I'm happy to apprise you, sir, that in this entire process, I have been having a good support from different colleagues, from national law schools to Delhi universities to some of the private law schools. And in the kind of a team I could bring in, we have different mentors and advisors. And out of that, the 5 of us have come together as the National Law School Bangalore alumni to provide the support to this entire initiative. Now, my dear friends, this I thought is actually a moment of interface, where on this background, which I've apprised to Honorable Mr. Justice Kurian Joseph in your presence, some of you are studying with us, some of you are looking forward to study with us. So I have in your presence apprised, sir, of the way we have been creating this platform, and now it gives me an opportunity to tell you all about our honorable guest for the evening today. That Honorable Mr. Justice Kurian Joseph was serving in the Supreme Court of India from 8th of March 2013 till 29th of November 2018. Justice Joseph began his career in the field of law when he graduated from Kerala Law Academy in 1978, and then also has been served as General Secretary of Kerala University Union in 1978, then has joined formal legal practice in 1979, and it's been a very long career in the legal fraternity. And as part of this long career, Honorable Justice Kurian Joseph has also served as Advocate General in 1994, was designated as a senior counsel in 1996. 4 years later, Honorable Justice Joseph also was elevated to the High Court of Kerala and was made the president of the Kerala Judicial Academy. And after that, Honorable Mr. Justice Kurian Joseph also served as acting Chief Justice of High Court of Kerala twice, and was appointed subsequently as the Chief Justice of Himachal Pradesh High Court from 2010 to 2013. To tell you, my dear friends, I had the good fortune of serving with the Honorable Justice Kurian Joseph in the Supreme Court, and I must tell you that Justice Joseph has authored as many as 100. 110 judgments, that in the sense, over 1,000 judgments which have been authored, right in the Supreme Court by Justice Joseph, which, as per some of the records that I have at present with me, is one of the phenomenal precedents in the Supreme Court judges for being in the 10th highest category of the Supreme Court judges for authoring such huge number of judgments in the Supreme Court. At the same time, there are a lot of landmark judgments, path-breaking judgments, which Justice Kurian Joseph has delivered during his tenure as the sitting judge of the Supreme Court, including Manoj Narula versus Union of India, then Supreme Court's Advocates on Record versus Union of India, which was NGAC judgment we all know, then Shaira Banu versus Union of India. And to tell you, there's been a very long-standing commitment of Justice Kurian Joseph with regard to that how we should look at the issue of death penalty, and that's why in one of the cases right before Sir was retiring, in the case of Channu Lal Verma versus State of Chhattisgarh, so Honorable Justice Joseph has commuted the death penalty to life imprisonment, and citing number of precedents and also relying on heavily on number of law commission reports and trying to pave a way that how the commutation should be done and how the rarest of rare doctrine should be invoked and how this entire principle of looking at the death penalty should be observed by the courts, including the Supreme Court. So this has been a very long-standing, illustrious career, my dear friends, of Justice Kurian Joseph, and it's been, I would tell you, a very good fortune for me and today for all of you to have an interface, directly interact with one of the judges of the Supreme Court who has left such fine imprints, especially in the area of judicial independence. So I welcome you all to join me in this very rare event where the judicial aspirants generally do not get this sort of an opportunity to have face-to-face interaction. At the same time, I welcome also Professor Yogesh Pratap Singh, the Vice Chancellor in charge of National Law University Odisha, my colleagues Dr. Kasturi, Ms. Ankita, Dr. Parikshit, Mr. Praveen Tripathi, who is coordinating the event with me to join and welcome sir. So please, accept our, respectful regards to you.
Thank you, Professor Nachiket. Esteemed gurus and my dear friends. Now, I chose to accept this invitation by Professor Nachiketa Mittal, your director of JPSC, because I found in him a real passion in legal education in COVID times. You don't know the sacrifice he undertook. He had to resign from his college. He was a professor there. He had to resign from his college to take up this virtual school. It's not a joke. It was not a simple risk. It has very huge financial implications. But still, yes, he said, no, his money is not everything. Though money is something. But he has taken forward this idea. And then came in between a spoke by the Bar Council of India as to how do you run a virtual law college. So it's not a virtual law college, it's actually a virtual law school where where people get benefited out of legal education. Whether in the times to come there could be a regular college itself is something to be seen. You can't shut it out altogether. Yeah, that's another aspect of it. Anyway, my dear friends, I'm aware that all of you are aspirants for judicial service. It could be civil judge junior division. It could be additional district judge direct. Why not High Court? And why not Supreme Court also? There are direct appointment from the bar in the Supreme Court also. And there is a quota of 33.33% in the High Courts from the service sector and 66.33 from the bar in the High Court appointments. So all those who enter the civil judge junior division and the ADJ direct recruit also, you also have a quota available in the sense, in that stream from the service quota of 33% earmarked for the judicial subordinate judiciary from the service. You can come into the Supreme Court and from there to the High Court and from there to the Supreme Court. There have been many judges who came like that, to Supreme Court. Justice K.T. Thomas, Justice was a former Chief Justice who joined us Civil Judge Junior Division. I just forgot his name. So anyhow, that's possible. I just wanted to know the doors are open. The possibilities are there. You don't miss the bus. You have many buses. But I just want to caution you only one thing. If ever you happen to get a conduct certificate from the school or college, they write two things. Those two things are he is a student from this day to this day here, and his character and conduct are good. I have wondered in those days, why should this headmaster write character and conduct? If character is good, conduct is good. If conduct is good, character is good. Later, when I came to this profession, I understood both are two different and distinct aspects. Merely because you're a good boy or a good girl doesn't mean that, you know, your conduct should be equally good. There's a presumption that if you're good, you'll only do good things. But nowadays, we don't find that presumption is a rebuttable presumption. It's not a irrebuttable presumption, it's a rebuttable presumption now. And the other way, you might do so many good things, but essentially your character-wise, your motive will be different. Then that also will be, you will be in a very difficult situation. So as far as nowadays we have started saying he's an honest judicial officer. I cannot even think of somebody saying that no honest judicial officer. All judicial officers are to be honest, because without honesty, you cannot be a judicial officer, because the honesty is the hallmark. Adherence to truth. To be brutally honest is the quality expected of a judge. Integrity. But people have started saying, you know, he's an honest judicial officer. That presupposes that there is an impression in the society that there are dishonest judicial officers also. So my dear young friends, be prepared to take up a difficult track. It's not a smooth track. To enter into the civil judge junior division category or director court ADJ and then continue is not it's not a joke. The main what they call it's a great honor, no doubt about it. There's nothing to compare as far as the recognition, as far as the great ambition, as far as the great call. It's a great call. It's not a service, it's a great call to serve the society, because you are partaking the what you call the duty to judge, be it a junior or senior or ADJ or High Court or Supreme Court. Everybody does the same thing. Renders the judgment, and through the judgment you are administering justice. I don't want to attribute it to a divine quality, though it is generally accepted in the Indian context that it is a divine what they call divine function. It is divine function in the sense, it's not because, you know, it is the God in you who judges, but it is the God in you helps you to judge impartially, without fear, without favor, without affection, without ill will, and to be honest, come what may. So this is the divine function, to help you to be honest officer. It is not the divine function to judge in your hands. No, that's a different notion altogether. I've seen certain people saying, is God who judges? Yes, God will judge you ultimately when you reach heaven or hell, at that position after death. But the function that you do here on earth is the judgment in accordance with the constitution and the laws made thereunder. But definitely, I tell you, I'm a very strong believer in God. But God helps you to be honest, to be straight, to adhere to truth and only truth, and to be not to be afraid of anybody else, and have a clean conscience and a clear mind. This is where, you know, the God-fearing. This I got because I'm a God-fearing person. I tell you very proudly. This I got I can tell you very proudly. But other than that, I don't ask God whether this is to be judged this way, that way. No, that is not the function that you have to do. Don't try God that way. God has so many other functions. You do your work conscientiously, and, you know, then ask for the divine assistance to help you in the 4 or 5 aspects I told you. And you can also be, you will also keep in mind, if you are a civil judge junior division, you will not be in a station for more than 3 years. Every 3 years will be transferred. So being in a family, your children will be studying at least maybe in 5-6 schools in your career. It's a great trauma for them, no doubt about it. And, you know, sometimes the transfer will be mid-academic year. Then you have to leave half family here, half family there. There are so many things like that. And I tell you, you will be doing double the work as of a lawyer. It's not a easy track of a civil judge or a judge. I have done more than 3 or 4 times work done as a lawyer when I became a judge. Because you are not a lawyer 24/7, but as a judge, you are 24/7, you are a judicial officer, because the cases that you heard, you have to render judgment. The cases you are to hear, you have to prepare. And you have to update yourself in law, as otherwise you will be outdated. So as a judicial officer, you are always to be updated, not outdated. If you're outdated, you will get all those bad remarks from your when it goes to in appeal. So you have to update. That means to sharpen your intellectual faculty, sharpen your skills, make a good turnover, and then prepare for the facts and what you call the law on the upcoming cases. So it's a very tough job. I always these days, whenever I address aspirants, I say, don't take that it is an easy job. As far as government servants are concerned, the moment they become a government employee, then it is all, it's a very easy job according to them. They go on a time, 10 o'clock they sign the register, 5 o'clock they sign out and go. They don't carry anything home. There's nothing left. They take the case of a college teachers. For them, there's a little more in the sense, they have now if you want to be true and honest and a successful faculty or teacher, he will have to update his knowledge. Now you are addressing students who have updated ahead of you, so you will have to have a very terrific research for addressing the students nowadays. But all other jobs, I'm saying, job as such, they are all time bound. And it doesn't carry anything home beyond that. But for judicial officers, it's terrible. You will have a very tough time. I don't want to tell you this is a very comfortable, cozy job. No, it's not a job. It's not a profession. It is a great call, and it's a tough task to be an honest, successful judicial officer. And unless you are a successful, hardworking and successful judicial officer, you will not be in a position to climb ladders. You are not going to be junior forever. No. From junior, you have to go to senior, you have to become ADJ, you have to go to the High Court, then to the Supreme Court, God willing, yes. So you have to carry from day one onwards this good name. There's a column in the ACR, Annual Confidential Report, about, there are 2-3 columns about your performance, about your conduct, about your turnover. So the quality, quantity, and conduct, all these 3 things will be assessed in the annual confidential report. And these confidential reports also will be taken into consideration heavily when it comes to your promotions. So my dear friends, I've given you sufficient indication, sufficient caution that the path you are going to choose is not an easy task. But having said that, I tell you, there is nothing like a judicial officer, because you are going to be going to the majesty, glory, submit in the profession of law. You are going to interpret law. You are going to judge on the facts and law. You are going to administer justice, and you are going to be the presiding officer of a court. You are going to be the court. There is no such fortune in one's life, in the career of law, in getting an opportunity to be sitting as and serving as a court. Court is not a room, not a place, not an institution. It's a service. It's a service, and there is nothing like if you can become a judicial officer. It is going to be history in your family, in your generation, that so and so was a judicial officer. Yes. Lawyers, they'll be forgotten. They will make money and they'll go. But the history that you're going to create being a reputed judicial officer is something great. So I cautioned you with the flip side first, but I'm telling you, this is something great. This is a very challenging job. This is a very what you call very chosen service. It's not open to anybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry. It's not available to any ordinary people. These are positions available to outstanding people whose performance, character, and conduct are exemplary, excellent, outstanding. So I'm sure you will mold yourself in all these three aspects on character and conduct, both in private life and public life. You don't cease to be a judicial officer when you go home, in your home also, when you go to market also, when you go to your recreation also, when you attend a function also. You are always seen as a judicial officer, so much so that as to what is ordinarily permissible for a lawyer will still be impermissible for you, because you are seen as a court, as a model, as an example, as an outstanding public figure. You're an outstanding public figure in the locality, in the panchayat, or in the village, or in that court whose jurisdiction probably comes in 3, 6, or 7 panchayats in civil judge junior division. So you are a great person. You are counted as the #1 person in that area. So that's the glory, and that's the majesty, and that's the charm, if you want to put it in a very light sense. So all the best to you. Make a good career as an honest, hardworking, passionate judicial officer. God bless you all. Yeah, now we'll have some interaction.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for these words of encouragement. And I do agree, it's a very important call for everyone. And I've been telling, all our candidates at JPAC also, and otherwise to all students who look up for a career, and try to look at judicial service seriously, that it's actually, you have opted for it consciously. You have opted for it, knocking out all other kinds of avenues of jobs and any kind of avenue of serving in any other profession in life after law school. It's a great responsibility that you all have taken up, and it's really commendable in that sense, I believe. So my dear friends, all students and a lot of lawyers who are looking forward to join judicial services, the platform is now open for all of you to interact freely. And what we recommend is, one by one, you can raise your hand, and we will be happy to take the question forward. So you can switch on your video, introduce yourself, keep the questions as short as possible, so that the maximum number of candidates, participants can get the opportunity of interacting. So Praveen, can you coordinate that?
Sure, sir. So once the students raise the hand, I will just coordinate it.
Yeah, I request all our JPAC candidates also to participate actively and interact. Even the faculty, colleagues, and lawyers, you all are welcome to interact. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, sir. I am Pushpa Kumar from Andhra Pradesh. My doubt was, I am completely new to this field, sir. There is no background of law officer from my family. Can a person without a law background can be can he become a judicial officer?
Yeah, I have the best example for that. In my family, there was nobody from the judicial side or from the lawyer side. Nobody. I'm the first generation lawyer in my family. So if that person can reach up to Supreme Court, you are the best choice for that. Make it. And prove that you have yourself as the best model for generations to come. So you can make it, you will make it. Because you are not seeing anybody else in the past, but you are seeing ahead to be the model for others to follow. That's how you make it.
Thank you very much, sir.
We can have a next question from here. Anyone?
Once you ask question, please switch off your mic so that there's noise reduction. Yeah, Ankesh, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. My name
Yes,
is
Ankesh.
Ankesh. Sir, I am fourth year law student, and sir, there are some confusion not with me also with my colleagues, sir, that doing PIL or some social work, does it lead to some difficulties in having career as a judicial officer in future, sir?
Not at all. That shows your passion to do justice, because by doing PIL, you are taking up the cause of those who cannot come on their own. You must do genuine PIL. There are several PILs. One is a political interested PIL, that is PIL, political interest litigation. Eschew that. The other is private interest litigation. You will have some motive which indirectly you want to achieve. No, don't do that. You have a publicity interest litigation. Just for the sake of publicity, you do something or can leave it there. No, don't do that. You have paisa interest litigation. That paisa, with the people, I've seen in many environmental cases, the competitor will be the person behind this fight. So somebody wants to get this closed down so that the other person thrives in the locality. There are many things. They have motives of hurting somebody or harassing somebody or some institution, some organization. These are all the 4 P's you have to eschew. One, take up the cause of those last, least, and the lost. Nobody will suspect your motive. People who cannot otherwise see court, people otherwise will not go to court, people otherwise will not get justice, people otherwise will not be in a position to what justice is. Justice is not an abstract thing. Justice is something to be experienced by those poor people. Yes, that's a great virtue. So if you are into genuine public interest litigations, that means you are taking up the cause of those people, we the people of India. Go for the cause of those social action litigation. Be the people of India.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question I have, sir.
The disabled, the lowest, the poorest, and things, all those classes. No, I can put them in one class, saying that marginalized sector, who are not in the mainstream, but who are away from the mainstream, in the margin. When you write examination, you have a margin, no, and the main column, main space. So we are all in the main space. Those are all people in the margin. So get them to the main space. Let that be your interest in public litigation.
Sir, I have one more question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, like we as young, sir, when we give judicial service exam, we are appointed, we get jobs, sir, we get to work in district courts, sir, like second class magistrate, then first class. So how can we aim to reach from there to the point of Supreme Court, sir?
Yeah, in fact, in my talk, I referred to it. By your commitment and by your hard work and by your best turnout and by your best image that you create as a passionate judicial officer, from junior you go to senior, from senior you go to ADJ, from ADJ you go to DJ, from DJ you have a quota of 33% straight to the High Court, and from the High Court, according to seniority, you go to the Supreme Court.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Yeah, next questions, please.
Yes, sir. I am the same Pushpa Kumar.
Justice Bhanumati, in fact, recently retired. She joined as a civil judge junior division. Or an ADJ, I think ADJ, she was ADJ, I think, or junior division. I got out. Anyhow, she came from the service.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Continuation to my same question. We are the budding lawyers. As soon as we come out of the law schools, we go for coaching, sir, for JCJ like that. What's your opinion? Whether we should go for a coaching or we should go for a practical exposure to the court directly, so that we can get a practical knowledge after, so that we can write our exams?
Yeah, if you ask me an honest question, I always tell that you must go to court, because a successful judicial officer must know how to conduct a court. And how to conduct a court, you will be in a position to learn only when you are in court in conducting cases. I've seen people, coming straight from the, national law schools and becoming judicial officers, as toppers, but they have been the poorest in the matter of conduct of either they become arrogant or they become foolish or they become hopeless. The reason is they in their life they have never ever conducted a case. They have never ever drafted a petition. They have never even conducted a cross-examination. They have never even asked for a bail. They have never even seen the process of court. Therefore, I tell you, definitely you should have some exposure in court. Then only you will know how to make yourself as a good officer. Having seen all those things where you are hurt, you take a decision. When I become a judicial officer, I'll be an excellent one. I will not have all these problems. I will prove myself to be an excellent judicial officer. Not like him, not like her. So therefore, go for some time in the practice. Actual practice and theory both are definitely different.
Right.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Constitutionally, for a judicial officer to become the ADJ, it is in the Constitution of India. You should have 7 years. You should be 7 years as a lawyer. Then only you can write that examination.
Yes.
That's the importance
Thank you very much.
of exposure.
Nice.
Because 50% is, you have to manage a court. You have to conduct a court. It's not hearing a case and writing an order. No, court is a different ball game altogether.
Fantastic. Thanks for your pleasure.
Sir, if I am permitted,
Sir.
can I ask a question now, sir?
Yes, everybody.
Yes. Sir, so I have been a teacher. So I have been teacher at National Law School, Bangalore, and now I have shifted to Delhi. So as you were mentioning about, there are several buses to join the judiciary. But the moment we join the teaching, I think we completely miss all the buses to join the judiciary now. So there is no way that we can become a judge at any point of stage, whether it's ADJ or at the higher level. So what do you suggest? Like, how can a teacher bridge a gap between the class and the courtroom? What could be the possible solutions for that, sir?
In the Constitution, for a High Court judge, the service as a teacher also is counted. That is certainly there. It's not. Just looking at the constitutional provision, yes. That is 213. Let me just 1 second. I'll just take it. No, not 213. It's governor. Yes. Constitution 216. 1 second. 217. Yeah, it is 217. In 2172, a person shall not be qualified for appointment as a judge of a high court unless he is a citizen of India or has at least 10 years held a judicial office in the territory of India, or has for at least 10 years been an advocate of a high court of two or high courts. Explanation: computing the period during which a person has held judicial office in territory, included any period after he has held any judicial office during which as held office as a member of tribunal post under union or state. Computing the period of advocate, the High Court, there shall be included any period during which a person held judicial office or office member union of Indian state, including a special knowledge of law after becoming an advocate. Computing the period which a person has judicial office in territory has been advocate of High Court, there should be included a period of the commencement of this constitution which he has it's comprised in the special a person arises to the special knowledge of law. You will come in that category. And there was a story about the Justice Krishnayar that for a person to come to Supreme Court, you should have 5 years as as a judge. But history says, he did not have that 5 years. So he came in this category of special knowledge. That is in the Article 124. Has been at least 5 years a judge of a High Court or of 2 or more such courts in succession, 10 years as an advocate of a High Court, and a distinguished jurist. It is in this category Justice Krishna was taken, hopefully, as a distinguished jurist. So a distinguished jurist can come straight to the Supreme Court, not even High Court. So become a distinguished jurist in being a teacher. But I agree, this teaching faculty needs to have some exposure in court also, and this also should be taken into consideration while considering the what they call the qualification to become a civil judge or ADJ or yes, that way.
Sir, why I ask this question, sir, because though I can become a High Court judge or Supreme Court judge if I deserve in future, but I can't become an ADJ with this qualification.
Yeah, that needs a fresh look in the matter of a qualification to become an ADJ, because as of now, what is held is only 7 years as an advocate.
Advocate, yes, sir.
Yeah, that probably needs to be amended. But you have a very valid point. In the definition of a qualification. Yes. Because the teachers are people who are always updated in law, not even lawyers. So I've seen many teachers having better knowledge than the lawyers. From my experience, I've seen.
Right. I think Nikita has a question, Praveen, if you can direct that. So with your permission.
Article 233. A person not already in the service of the union or the state shall only be eligible to be appointed a district judge if he has been for not less than 7 years an advocate or a pleader and is recommended by the High Court for appointment. Probably it's there where you can have an amendment or a teacher in law of a recognized affiliated college or recognized university, whatever it is. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Nikita, you wanted to ask a question. So can we take that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Actually, I just wanted to ask that how, as a judge, do you deal with moral dilemmas that come in your way? As, for example, there is a thing that is morally right, but according to the black letter of law, that is not so right. For example, when you, if I take an example, let's take the colonial era law, the Railway Act. A person was punished, a 18-year-old young boy was punished for selling in the railways, and that too he was maybe due to his poor family or background, he was forced to get into the job. He has not made a conscious choice. But now he is present before you and he's being persecuted for selling or begging in the railway. So, according to your moral ethics, it is not right to punish him. But the black letter of law states that it is a strict liability offense. There are no exceptions and he has to be punished. So how will you go about that?
Tripathi, can you just repeat what she said?
Hello, Nikita. Her question was about the morality. So, how, as a judge, how do you distinguish between the black letter of law, which is there, and morality asks you to do something else? So how do you reconcile the two conflicting opinions which may be there with respect to morality? Sir, I can't hear you, sir.
Can you ask her to repeat the question?
Yes, yes. Nikita, can you repeat your question, please? Nikita, try to be a little concise in your question.
So I wanted to know that how do you, interpret or decide a case in which your morals say something different, then your morals and your law is, conflicting. As in, do you get it? Like, how should I? Like your morals say that the person should not be punished, but the law says that it is a strict liability offense and he should be punished. Then how do you go about deciding a case?
It's a good question that you asked. I tell you, you are appointed to be a judge in a court of law, not in a court of your moral conscience. There's no point in saying that, I've done everything according to my conscience. So you are driving a car and, in a traffic junction, you are going in a hurry because you have to reach court by 10:30. So unmindful of the red light, you cross the red light. Then thereafter the policeman stops you. The police officer asks you, what did you do? No, I did it according to my conscience. What is that conscience? It's a conscience that is formed by law, because we live in a country ruled by law. So you have taken oath to administer justice in accordance with the law, not in accordance with your moral conscience. Your moral conscience is something when you go to your temple, your church or a mosque. That is a different debate. But as far as a judicial officer concerned, it's not your moral conscience, but it is your legal conscience that is important. That is to be upheld, because you're called and appointed to uphold law, not uphold your moral conscience. But having said that, I can tell you, say, you get an opportunity to interpret law, whether the law is according to justice. That position you will get when you come to a constitutional court or a high court or Supreme Court. That is where you have this freedom. If you find that a law is not according to justice, you can interpret that law in accordance to justice. That is the advantage you get. That's what I did when I came to High Court and Supreme Court. So I did not have any problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Next we have Samantha Talukdar. Can you ask the question, please? Samantha?
We can take some other question between.
Yes. So if anyone else has a question, you can just come forward with your question, please.
Good evening, sir. Sir, my name is Sumanta Talukdar. Sir, I had a question. So my question is that, sir, do you think, sir, that the study of English common law and American law will help us be a better judicial officer?
See, those things will help you when you come to High Court and Supreme Court. Don't study these things for the purpose of entering the civil judge, junior or ADJ. In the sense, I'm not discouraging you. In the sense, what you are asked to write in the examination is not the jurisprudential aspect of it. You are asked to expose your knowledge in law and your skill in application of law. In the skill in application of law at this juncture may not be as sharp or as prominent as may be required while you exercising as a judge of the Superior Court. That means Superior Court means constitutionally Superior Courts are only High Court and Supreme Court, where, as I told just a little early, you get an opportunity to interpret law in accordance with justice. Whereas in sitting as a junior civil judge or a senior civil judge or a DJ, you don't get that much of leeway to interpret law in accordance with justice, because you're always confined by the law, the precedents, and the letter of law. Spirit of law probably you get in the interpretative process. Letter of law is more. So If you have time and passion, do it always. But I tell you, it's not quite necessary. At this stage, yeah.
Thank you, Sumanta.
Thank you, sir.
If there is no other questions, or can we have one more question, sir? Nachiketa, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
If there is anyone questions, you can please raise your question immediately.
Yeah. Any other question, friends?
Yeah, they may not have questions because in the introduction, I have told them what they wanted to hear from me.
Right.
So we can go for the website inauguration now.
Right. So before
Hello.
that,
Hello.
yeah, please go ahead. Somebody wanted to ask.
Hello, good evening, sir. My name is Mamta Sharma.
Uh-huh.
I have a question. As so many rape cases are reported recently, what is your take on the conduct of police, especially in Hathras case?
Police in Hathras case. Conduct of police in Hathras case, it's a matter of investigation now, so it may not be proper to make any comment on this. But all said and done, I can tell you, see, according to Indian culture and in the interpretation of human rights, even respect to the dead body itself, something is very important. Respect to the dead body. From what we learn from the reports is that that respect was not shown to the dead body, because the moment a person is dead, you have seen in capital punishment also, after the person is hanged, the body is handed over to whom? Not to the police. Body is handed over to the family, because it becomes the property of the family. That was not done in this case. So I think there was a very serious lapse on the part of the police. That is my personal comment, but not to be quoted at this juncture because it's a matter under investigation now.
Right. Friends, I would recommend please keep your questions specific to the judicial service preparation, because that's how we must try to keep the element of the entire event, so that you benefit mostly from that. And now, since if we don't have any other questions, I request Professor Yogesh Pratap Singh, the Vice Chancellor in charge of National Law Institute Odisha, to share his his thoughts about the entire judicial service preparation.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, Heli, please go ahead.
Good evening,
Yeah, go
sir.
ahead.
Yes. Good evening, sir. Sir, my name is Haley. I'm a second year law student, and I wanted to prepare for judicial exam. So, sir, right now, being a second year law student, what do you recommend me that how should I prepare right now?
Yeah, have this ambition first, number one. Number two, have this goal, number two. Number three, start preparing yourself emotionally to that goal. Three. Number four, start reading the case laws, reading every aspect of law that you learn now. Connect it with the judgments taking place in court, or judgments which are taken place in court, and then always develop what you call a connect with the trial and the law. That is how you have to develop it at this stage. Not the letter of law, not the simple letter of law, but the law as applied in court. That is how you have to. As far as the student is concerned, you don't have much to write in the examination as to how it is applied in court. You need only write the theoretical aspect of law. But if you have the real ambition to go for a judicial officer, always train your mind to learn as to how the law that you learned in the class is actually applied in court. Go for the precedents, go for the cases which are going on, etc. etc. That is how you have to develop it now.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. Professor Yogesh, I request you to share your thoughts.
Good evening, my lord.
Good evening, Professor Yogesh. I couldn't see your face, so I couldn't address you. Yeah.
After a long time, I heard, and it was a very nice lecture, sir. with respect to judicial services, the problem, the challenges, and the prospects for the judicial officers. I just wanted to add, Nachiket, when we were in the Supreme Court as part of the Center for Research and Planning, we, Milord, prepared a report on the subordinate judiciary because there is a long tussle going on between the executive and the judiciary that number of judges in the subordinate courts are very less. There are many reports, many Supreme Court judgments, direction where Supreme Court has given direction to the government that you should fill the vacancies, at least remaining vacancies in the subordinate judiciary. Because if we compare with the developed countries, the judge population ratio in developed countries, it is 50 judge per million population. In developing countries, it is around 35 to 40 judges per million population, and what we have is around 15 to 17 judges per million population. So we are very far away. We lagging behind in terms of number of judges in the subordinate courts. So we submitted a report based on various committees appointed by the government, appointed by the Supreme Court, appointed by the Parliament. And all the committees unanimously recommended that there should be increase in the number of judges in the subordinate courts, also in high courts, because there are many vacancies even in high courts. Now Supreme Court, they are filling regularly, but initially even Supreme Court, we used to find many vacancies. So there are very good prospects for the people who are aspiring for judicial services. Initially, there were problems with respect to the terms and conditions of the service conditions. As my lord rightly mentioned, the transfer and posting is one of the important area where people hesitate to join judicial services. But irrespective of all these things, now after a Shetty Commission recommendation, the terms and conditions have also been, I think it is much better. So service conditions have improved a lot in subordinate service judicial services, and especially for the girls, females. I think many state governments, they are providing reservation. So 30% or 33% seats are reserved for the females. So it's a very good opportunity. And in my university, initially in law schools, we used to see the trend that people from law school will not join judicial services. But now I can see in last 3-4 years in my university, many students, at least 10 to 15 students, they are recruited by various state judicial services in MP, in UP, in Rajasthan, in Odisha. So there is a very good prospects for the people who are interested, and I think we badly need good judges. So, and this is one of the, it will be one of the biggest contribution of the lawyer schools and people like Nachiket, who started this initiative, great initiative I would call, so that people can be motivated, people can be guided, people can be this kind of opportunity you will not get, learning and getting experience from a Supreme Court judge. So there are many coaching centers you will find in many places, but you will not find Justice Kurian Joseph who will come and address you. So this is a very rare opportunity, and I would congratulate and I wish him all the best for this initiative. I think Nachiketa, I think it is going to create a very big impact. So thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
For addressing students.
Right. So now I'll request, Honorable Justice Kurian Joseph to launch the website of Judicial Preparation Advisory Center. And sir, to tell you, also adding one more dimension to it, that since we are a private entity, but keeping in view the way I have been operating till now, when I have been even in virtual law school till date, any student who comes from economically weaker section or especially able category, despite the fee being as low as 750, we do not charge them at all. So we have carried forward a similar kind of a thing, even in Judicial Preparation Advisory Center, that we cannot, probably make it completely free of cost to pro bono, but as part of our contribution of, social being contributing to the society, we have reduced the fee for anybody who is coming from economically weaker section or especially able category, 70% fee waiver of what we would otherwise charge, right, to any other candidate. So that, I mean, I've been doing that to a lot of students who have registered with us. Even there are some of the students who could not afford the fee despite not having the appropriate documents in place. So even to them, we have waived the fee, because the motto has been to actually first reach out to as many candidates and prepare them hard. So that's been the objective. And given the very basis of our existence, so we did not invest because of a very low budgeted sort of an institution in itself, trying to work for the community. So the websites that you're going to launch today, I am happy to inform you that I and another colleague of mine, Ms. Amrita Singh, we have developed that ourselves without any help from any IT personnel. So it's a creation of a in-house sort of a website that was created in last 4 days of sleepless nights.
Hearty congratulations. That means it is original.
It is original.
Yes, absolutely.
That is the beauty of it. Everything original law has its own beauty.
Right. So,
sir, only in law you will find this originality, not in any other portion. Originality always comes in law. Right. So, hearty congratulations, Professor Nachiket. I just want to tell you, probably I think you should go for a registration by a society or a trust, something like that. Get a what you call tolle under the Income Tax Act, and get an ATG also, and then probably there will be people to support this cause. So right. They will be in a position to support it also.
Right.
And you can also apply this principle of cross subsidization, in the sense, if there are people who can afford have come in, you can ask them if they are happy to pay a little more, they can pay, because with that, you can subsidize the ones who cannot.
Right.
As you rightly said, we need to exist.
Right. So we have one very good precedent, in fact, in this regard. Although the fees is very low in virtual law school, but we have one of our candidates in Judicial Preparation Advisory Center, JPAC, who was also studying in VLS, Virtual Law School, Ms. Simran. So she had to withdraw from one of the courses because she joined here. So when I wanted to refund her fee, so Simran, she asked me that, I do not want the refund. Could you use this fee to teach somebody else who needs that kind of education? So we do have some of such students with us, who have been very generous, and they understand their social responsibility as well. And in keeping with that, for virtual law schools, so we have registered that as a not-for-profit company under Section 8 of the Companies Act.
Section 8, yeah, Section 8.
Right.
So that you can get some CSR, what you call shares also, yeah.
Right. So can I now request you to launch the website? Praveen, can you assist sir in doing that?
Yes, sir.
So invoking God's blessings and congratulating Nachiket and your friend in having created this original web page, and wishing you all the best. I declare that the web open.
Yeah. So Praveen, can you just launch that on behalf of sir so that everyone can see that once?
Yeah, you can launch it now. Yeah.
Just a minute.
Yeah. My dear friends, I can put the note here in the chat box so that you all can also log into that. It's judicialpac.com. You can share the screen, Praveen. Yeah, you can scroll down and then just take us through different pages quickly. So it gives a button for the demo lecture also on the top, and even about us, Praveen. Yeah, this is about all the courses. About us page, Praveen. This is about our story of JPAC here, as you all friends can see it. You can scroll it down, Praveen. It's meet advisors and mentors. And then we do have some testimonials from our own students at JPAC. And then we take you to the contact section page, Praveen. Yeah. So from here, any student can also register for the demonstration class if they want to, or any query, and it also has a FAQ section at the end. And that why should you enroll? What is we at JPAC is offering in times of COVID, and what does JPAC offer as part of course fee, and how are the classes conducted? So all the kinds of the basic FAQs are also being answered here, and we'll be happy to assist you. And Praveen, I now request you to please propose a word of thanks for the event.
Yeah, very comprehensive. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Praveen, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. So one restraint which we always find with respect to this virtual meetings is that we cannot thank you with our claps and applause, which we generally have in the physical setup. But let me take this opportunity to thank you that to taking out time and addressing us, and also cautioning the students the amount of hard work, character, and conduct they require to become a judge. And we assure you that at JPAC, while teaching, we are not just restricted to completing the course and sending the student for the competitive exam. One of the important ideas is that to also build this character in the student, that when they become a judge, they actually grace the seat of a magistrate or a civil judge there. So I hope that in the future, we will be getting opportunities to interact you again once our first batch is ready for writing the examination. And we look for your continuous guidance for this particular initiative. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, Professor Yogesh Pratap Singh, sir, for coming here. And thanks all the participants and the faculty of JPAC for joining and making this a small discussion a successful discussion. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Stay blessed. God bless. God bless you.
Goodbye. Praveen, you can stop the recording at your end.